What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff, and on today's show, UNLV has one of the worst defenses in program history. The United States and Canada both almost blew our gold medal showdown, and the Mountain West is adding a really bad football program. I am recording from the Thomas and Mack shortly after UNLV just lost to Colorado State. If you're watching on YouTube, you can tell I'm not sitting in my office. So we'll see if this works out well. People are cleaning up Thomas and Mack around me, so hopefully I don't get kicked out, and hopefully they're not too loud. Here we go. So UNLV loses to Colorado State, and in doing so had a horrendous defensive performance. They gave up 91 points on 61 defensive possessions. That is 1.492 points per possession. There's your 3 decimal places. But 3 decimal places is important because that is tied for the second worst performance in UNLV history in the Ken Pom era, which is 1998 to now. Second worst defensive performance that they have had. Unbelievably bad what they just did on defense against Colorado State. Colorado State scored in the paint. They were 20 of 24 on layups or dunks. They had no problem getting to the rim. Colorado State is a very high turnover team. They're one of the worst in the Mountain West. They only had 7 turnovers in this game, and I believe 3 of those came in the final minute when UNLV was in a full court press while losing by like 7, 8, 9 points. We'll get to the free throws, the fouls, everything, but they scored 20 points from the free throw line. It was 20 of 27. I think the best stat to sum up how bad this was is that was UNLV's second best offensive game of the season. 1.36 points per possession. The only game they've played this year with a better offensive points per possession was against Chattanooga. So they were great offensively, and they still lost this game, and they did actually have a chance to tie the game, but really were kind of out of it despite a late run there. And interestingly enough, post-game, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn talked to the media, and he said they weren't focused. He specifically said that they couldn't do things they just talked about in the huddle 10 to 15 seconds later. And he was asked to kind of follow up on that, and he really just said, all I can tell you is a lack of focus. He didn't really know why they weren't focused, didn't know why they couldn't do what they talked about in the huddle on the floor, but he attributed all of this to a lack of focus, which is fascinating to hear because we're in mid-February, and what exactly does that mean? But this is a team that's just not consistent enough, and well, consistently bad on defense. Maybe they are consistent enough, but we've just seen this the entire year, and if it's focus or whatever, they don't have it. Now, Josh Pastner in the post game, when sort of asked about this, he didn't really agree with the lack of focus, and he kept focusing on the bad starts and how they're getting off to these poor starts. They did it against Boise State. They did it again against Colorado State tonight. And he keeps focusing on, hey, we're getting off to bad starts, and that's what has to change. So a couple of things on that. First off, he's all in on these bad starts, but he's also the one starting Emmanuel Steffen and then benching him 1 minute in. Right? He has started Jacob Benarby in previous games, and those are not among UNLV's best 5 players. Tyron Jones, who is clearly the top 3 player on this team, has not started since coming back from injury. Right? It seems obvious. Play your best players. And if you're worried about getting off to bad starts, play your best players to start the game. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, Kamani Hamilton, and Tyron Jones are the clear top 3. If you want to have your best start, those 3 should be on the floor to start the game. And then after that, it's, Isaac Williamson's, Howie Fleming, one of the centers, maybe Walter Brown, right? Those are your options. But play your best 3 and then maybe match up to what you're about to play. Because, specifically in this game, if you listen to this show, what did I tell you yesterday? Colorado State shoots 3s. Their center shoots 3s. The whole lineup shoots 3s. And they shoot it really, really well. And then in the postgame, Josh Pastner said the reason he took Emmanuel Steffen out after the first minute was because they ran a flare screen for their center to get an open look, and Steffen committed a foul on it. And that was a hard thing for Emmanuel Steffen to guard. We knew that. We all know that their center shoots 3s. He shoots it well from 3, and that all 5 guys on the floor shoot the 3. This wasn't some, oh, wow, their center just started making 3s all of a sudden. And so Pastner still started Emmanuel Stephan and then realized 90 seconds in, oh, I got to get this guy out of the game because he can't guard that. If you want to have better starts, start a better lineup. Like at the end of the day, start a better lineup if that's what you want. Don't put a lineup out there that's likely to fail. And that's what I feel like Pastner has done these last couple of games. Now, I also don't think you can just attribute this to bad starts. Because if you look at the totality of their season, it's not just bad because the first few minutes of games go poorly. Like we're not forgetting the Fresno State game where they completely blew that thing and they did it in the final minute of the game. UNLV has been bad to start games. They've been bad to close games. They've been bad in the middle of halves. They've been bad at the end of the first half. They've been bad at the start of the second half, right? Like they've been bad at all points of games this year. This is just an inconsistent team. You cannot count on them to play well for 40 minutes or even 30 minutes at a time. So I don't think focusing on the starts is really the way to go about fixing this. Reality is I don't think there is a way to fix it because I just don't think they're good enough. I just don't think this roster is good enough, and we've seen that they're going to be inconsistent. And so if the focus is, hey, just make the starts better, I don't think that changes things. Now, play your best players if you do want to make the starts better, and Pastner has not been doing that, but I don't think that fixes everything. We're still going to see this team play poorly. So I do think that's sort of a big issue, is not necessarily the starts, but just the totality of games. They can't play 40 full minutes. Now, on the fouls, because this part of it is fascinating. I can't figure out why UNLV plays these games where there are just an ungodly number of fouls. It did calm down in the second half, so we didn't get, 62 fouls in the Fresno State game that we saw. But the first half of this game was insane. There were 26 fouls in the first half, including a technical foul. We had a monitor review on the third possession. We only went, the longest time without a foul was 2 minutes and 35 seconds in the first half. We couldn't make it 3 minutes without a foul in the first half. And I do not know why this happens in UNLV games. Yes, defensively, they're not great, right? Like it's not there. But not every game should have this many fouls. And yes, offensively, they get to the rim, but it's just insane how many games where both teams end up getting called for a lot of fouls. One last thing on the defense. Josh Pastner, because he mentioned this in his post-game press conference, that he's basically prided himself as a head coach on having good defensive teams. And if you look back at his past, he normally has had good defensive teams. This is the worst defensive team he's ever had. They are 209th in KenPom defense, and he's never had a team outside the top 200. For comparison's sakes, Marvin Menzies, his last season was, I think, 217. TJ Otzelberger was around 215 in his last season. Those are some of the worst defensive teams UNLV's ever had. And this one is close. This one is very close to being that bad. If they have a few more performances like this, they're going to crater down and be the worst defense that UNLV has ever produced. So not ideal. Not the greatest defense that we have, but I do want to talk at least a little bit about the offense, because again, this was the second best offensive game of the season for UNLV. Like, the defense is historically bad and they lost the game, but the offense was still really good in this game. Dragan Lawhorn scored 31 points. He made 11 of 21 shots. He was 6 of 12 from three. He's now shooting 45% from three in Mountain West play. And a lot of these are not easy threes. He is not the catch and shoot, just, hey, I'm out here to make threes, guys. He's taking things off the dribble. He's taking step back threes. He's taking off the dribble transition threes. Like, it's wild. He's up to 39% for the season. He was at 24% coming in. His previous 2 years, he was shooting 24% from three, and he's at damn near 40% for the entire season. It is wild how good his shooting has been, and he's getting everything in the paint to fall as well. He's been really, really good sort of manipulating defenses in the paint and finding little areas to get a shot up and score. It's terrific. Also, Tyron Jones, 2 points in the first half, doesn't start the game, but wasn't that good in the first half. He scored at 18 in the second half, 7 of 9 from the floor. And the thing I thought was most interesting is they went to sort of just kind of like post isolations, get it to him about 8 feet away from the basket and just let him go one-on-one. And he scored pretty consistently on that, right? Like, he was good at just a very simple thing, exploiting a mismatch, I guess. He was just taller, I think is all it was. And he was good. The offense is good. This is a good offensive team. They've been really good recently too, like really good recently offensively. I'm gonna have to actually look up here on the fly what they are, because the offense has been spectacular. Like, they've been a really good offensive team. In Bart Torvik does this by last 10 games. They're the 41st best offense in the country over the last 10 games played. They're top 50 offense in the last 10 games. Now, they're 274th defensively in the last 10 games. So that's not ideal, but it's just like, the offense is good. It's really good. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn is unbelievably good. I would have never expected him to have been this good. Tyron Jones gives you that. Kamani Hamilton had a quiet game, but Kamani Hamilton is a good offensive player as well. There's just no defense whatsoever. I think defensively, normally when you have a bad defense, the biggest problem is always going to be you can't stay in front of guys off the dribble, right? Because if you get beat off the dribble, especially without there being a ball screen, everything collapses. Guys have to help. Then there's open threes or open dunks or whatever it is. And UNLV certainly struggles with that, but they struggle off the ball a lot. Like, they struggle defending screens. They got beat on so many backdoor cuts today. It was wild how many backdoor cuts they gave up to Colorado State. So, like, UNLV's bad off the ball, worse than I think you would expect them to be. And that's a issue that's probably not getting fixed by the end of the year. Now, I've got one more UNLV story to talk about, and it's unrelated to this game, but it is related to these players, because UNLV played in the Players Era Tournament. And Players Era Tournament, that's the big college basketball non-conference tournament that promises to pay all the teams $1 million. It's supposed to go to the players in NIL money. And UNLV specifically took a deal where they'd get $800,000 for the players, because UNLV had to take a $200,000 and buy themselves out of the Maui Invitational, right? Well, according to Sportico, UNLV players have not been paid by this tournament. Back in January, UNLV apparently sent 2 invoices to the Players Era Tournament totaling $1 million, and it's unknown what the status of that is. Also of note, UNLV is not the only team to not get paid from the Players Era Tournament. But just to recap for you, UNLV played in the Players Era Tournament and got the worst time slots, right? They played late night tips on weekdays, and then they played on Thanksgiving Day at the same time as the Dallas Cowboys games. They got zero exposure for this. There was no television exposure for UNLV. They also got annihilated 3 games, partially because they played Alabama, who's really good, and also because they were about as injured as they've been the entire season during those 3 games. And now they're having to fight to get the money the players are owed. So literally nothing good came of this for UNLV. Like, the opponents didn't help them at all. They got crushed. The timing was terrible. The time slots were terrible. And we're not even sure they're going to get the money out of this. Now, the bigger picture story on this is the tournament. The Players Era Tournament has not paid multiple teams. And Michigan, according to Sportico, Michigan, their players got paid the $1 million, but there's a bonus for winning it. And Michigan says they haven't gotten paid that bonus. So there's clearly money issues here. And Sportico also reported that the Players Era Tournament is struggling to get a TV contract for next season because they're asking for $50 million. And TV partners, I guess, are not willing to pay that much. Because couple of things. One, there are plenty of these non-conference tournaments, right? Maui Invitational has long been the best one until the Players Era Tournament neutered it. These tournaments don't make a ton of money, certainly not enough money to pay all of the teams $1 million to give to their players. So the fact that the Players Era Tournament could come in and even attempt to do this, already kind of far-fetched, unless they were just planning to lose money, which is possible, right? But beyond that, the TV partners, I love college basketball, and I assume if you're listening to me come up here and ramble about UNLV basketball, you love college basketball. But it's not a popular sport. And it's not pulling in television ratings until March. So the appetite for a TV partner to broadcast these games is not going to be high enough, even if you have the best college basketball teams. Even if it's feast week, right, where college basketball is supposed to be played all day, every day for Thanksgiving week. It's just, the appetite's just not going to be there because not enough people care to watch it. And so is the Players Era Tournament going to survive? Again, if they want to just take a loss, if they just want to have the notoriety about it, if they just want to try to like nuke all other non-conference tournaments and then somehow turn that into a business plan 6 years down the road by taking a loss now, then maybe. But if they actually want to make money off of it right now, I don't think they can. So I genuinely do question, like, how long does the Players Era tournament last? We'll see, and we'll also see if UNLV gets its money. Before Bischoff's briefs, I just want to take my camera off and do this because it's fun. Here is your empty Thomas and Mack arena. Well, almost empty. People are cleaning up. So there's your Thomas and Mack. Coming up next, it's Bischoff's briefs.
Battle Blast, been serving Las Vegas since June 2012 with the very best in family entertainment. We are proud to provide the best facility, equipment, and service possible. Strap on laser tag vests, step into the 5,600 square foot two-story arena designed to look like a worn-torn city street. An exciting atmosphere filled with exhilarating music, blacklight effects, and fog. Battle Blast also features a viewing deck for those not playing can watch players vest up and catch a view of the action going on in the arena. In between games, check out our arcade and prize center and enjoy tasty treats from our snack bar. Birthday parties, sports teams, group outings, and corporate events. Battle Blast does it all. We want to make your Battle Blast experience so good you'll want to return again and again. Battle Blast is the ultimate destination for family fun and friendly competition.
Technically Correct is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Battle Blast is the perfect spot for your next event, whether it's a kid's birthday party, your birthday party, a corporate event, whatever it is. Head out to Battle Blast Las Vegas. They're at 8125 West Sahara Avenue. Battle Blast Las Vegas, your next stop for fun in Vegas. We almost got robbed twice of the dream matchup of the United States and Canada in the gold medal game for men's hockey. The United States beat Sweden 2-1 in overtime in their quarterfinal. Sweden scored with an empty net to force overtime, but Quinn Hughes sniped a goal in OT to win it. And then Canada also needed overtime to beat Czechia. Canada was actually trailing. They had to tie the game in the third period just to get to overtime. And then Mitch Marner won the game. Mitch Marner had a tremendous play where he skates in from the blue line, basically beats all three Czechia players that are on the ice in 3-on-3 overtime, and then finished with a tremendous backhand shot. I mean, his shot should have had no chance of going in, but it was a perfectly placed, high shot off his backhand, which was incredible from Mitch Marner. And the Mitch Marner narrative that exists because of how often Toronto lost in the playoffs and how often Mitch Marner did not produce any offense in playoff games, it exists, except he's now scored a big goal in overtime. And we got this quote from Mark Stone. Shout out to Luke Fox of Sportsnet who tweeted this out. But Mark Stone apparently said, "As a teammate, I haven't experienced that. Four Nations, he gets a huge goal for us, makes an incredible play for the winner. Then tonight, when we need him the most, he makes the play. So I think it's a Toronto thing." Tremendous work by Mark Stone to infuriate Maple Leaf fans who, I guess if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, you're still reacting in a very positive way to that Mitch Marner goal, right? I mean, assuming you're a Canadian Toronto Maple Leafs fan, right? Like, you're cheering for Canada to win the gold medal. And yeah, Mitch Marner might have been an infuriating player, but you still want to win the gold medal. So Mitch Marner doing it is phenomenal. And then Mark Stone comes over the top with a, "Hey, you idiots, it's all your fault. Mitch Marner's actually great." So good work by Mark Stone for probably making a bunch of Toronto Maple Leafs fans very angry after their country won a game in the Olympics. Now, for the record, Mitch Marner scored an overtime goal in the Four Nations face-off last year. I think it was their first game. It wasn't like the gold medal game or anything like that. So he scores an overtime goal in the Four Nations. But to be perfectly clear, Mitch Marner does not have an overtime goal for the Golden Knights this season. He also doesn't have a game-winning goal either. And I kind of hate the game-winning goal stats, but it's probably the best way to sort of classify, like, Marner hasn't exactly scored like all these clutch goals for the Golden Knights. So I don't know that Mark Stone has experienced clutch Mitch Marner outside of a couple of, hey, 2 games where I've played for you with Canada. But it's the Olympics, and Mark Stone is kind of shit-talking the people that are cheering for him, so I'm on board for it. I don't think it's probably smart, but I think it's funny. The other part of the Olympics that I love, and we're going to do this to whichever of these two countries do not win the gold medal. The small sample size jumping on players for not being good, right? It's happening to Austin Matthews, but the United States is in the semifinal. So, if they win the gold medal and Austin Matthews doesn't score another goal, it's irrelevant. But if the United States doesn't win the gold medal and whatever game, whether it's the semi or whether it's the final, if Austin Matthews doesn't score or at least have a point, he's going to get ripped, right? But it's funny to me because we're talking about like 4 games. A lot of these games aren't that competitive for the second half of the games, right? Like some of these countries aren't that good. The quarterfinals were very competitive, but it's like 4 games. You're thrown together with teammates you don't play with in a country you don't play hockey in against teams that also aren't with teammates they usually play with. And then it's like, yeah, why is this Austin Matthew guy suck? But we're going to do it to whoever loses. It's going to happen. If it's the U.S., it's probably Matthews. If he scores in the gold medal game, but they lose, maybe it's like Jack Eichel or something like that. If Canada loses, right? I mean, McDavid's got an assist on like every goal they scored, but maybe it's McDavid, maybe it's McKinnon, right? Maybe it's Stone and Marner, right? Those are 2 possibilities too. But we're gonna do that, and it's just funny because it's such a small sample size, and it's even worse than like small sample size NHL playoffs, because in the NHL playoffs, you're playing with your team that you played with the whole season, right? It's not we threw this team together and this is the first time in a year that we've played together. Like, it's very, very funny. Now the upcoming schedule, the women, US and Canada play for gold today. 10 a.m. is that start time, Pacific time. We should beat the hell out of them. I mean, that we beat the hell out of them already, and based on other games, it looks like we're going to beat the hell out of everybody that we could possibly play. So I'm expecting the U.S. to win this game and it not be that difficult. But it's hockey. Hockey's dumb, so maybe it will be. But that's at 10. The men are back. Friday is the semifinal for the men. United States gets Slovakia. We get the late start, so we get the 12:10 Pacific time start on Friday. Canada and Finland are the earlier game at 7:40, and then the winners will play in the gold medal game on Sunday at 5 in the morning. I'm still mad at that. In the WNBA, we don't have a CBA. There might not be a season in the WNBA, but we have an update. The players who are pushing for more money, that's basically what every CBA strike, lockout, negotiation is usually about. But the players are pushing for more money. And if you haven't paid any attention to this, the players specifically want a percentage of the WNBA revenue to determine how much money the players get. That is how the NBA is set up. That is how the NFL is set up. Roughly, those leagues, the salary cap is set by whatever 50% of the revenue is for those leagues. That means if the league gets much more revenue, the players get half of it, right? The WNBA players want a similar setup. Important note, they're not asking for 50%. Their last request was 30%. But ESPN has a story on this. The players have presented a new proposal where they only get 25% of the revenue, and then it would rise up to 27.5% in coming years. So that's really the big thing here. I will say there was in that story, the owners have apparently agreed to housing. So players that are on a minimum salary will get some housing. It's a 1-bedroom apartment or a studio apartment paid for. So that's a win for the players. They got something, but that's sort of like a side detail and not the biggest thing that they're fighting for. Overall, this appears to be the players are making huge concessions while the owners do next to nothing concession-wise on the big item here. Sarat Sohi, who talks about the WNBA all the time, she tweeted this out, that in the last 2.5 months, the players have come down on their ask of what the salary cap would be by approximately $3 million, while the owners have gone up by approximately $600,000. Those are not close to being equal. So right now, it looks like the players are making more and more concessions than the owners are, which seems to be the case more often than not, right? When we have these labor strikes or potential, I say strikes or lockouts, or whatever it is, CBA negotiations, it seems like that happens more often than not, that the owners win and the players have to make more concessions. But that seems to be the way this is trending. Where the owners actually end up accepting this, I don't know. But as of now, 25% is the offer from the WNBA. In college basketball, some bad news. JT Toppin of Texas Tech tore his ACL. He used to play for New Mexico, if you recognize that name from some Mountain West games, but the last 2 years at Texas Tech, he's been, I mean, one of the top 10 players in all of college basketball. He's been awesome. So you have a top 20 team in the country, lose their best player, who's one of the 10 best in the country. It's brutal. They were probably a team that could have made a run to a Final Four, right? We're not going to be favored or anything, but like, oh, hey, they're the 4 seed that finds themselves in the Final Four. That probably won't happen now without JT Toppin. But I do want to point out one thing, and Chris Murray tweeted this out, so give him credit for this point. But JT Toppin, through NIL, has made a few $1,000,000. He reportedly is getting $4 million this season from Texas Tech, and he got a couple of million. I think it was $1.5 million the year before. Through NIL, he's made a good chunk of money these last 2 years playing college basketball. If that did not exist, JT Toppin tears his ACL. His draft stock for the NBA is ruined, right? And granted, if you're good enough, Kyrie Irving got drafted after barely playing in college, right? If you're good enough, did he even play? Why am I second guessing myself on that? But if you're good enough, like you'll still find your way into the NBA and make some money, but that initial salary is just slashed if you suffer this kind of injury before the NBA draft. And so the good thing about NIL is this is an exact scenario where JT Toppin is good at basketball. JT Toppin has gotten paid because he's good at basketball before the NBA. This injury does not completely ruin his earnings while being a basketball player. In the NFL, you ready for the Raiders to play in Mexico City? It's possible. So the 49ers are going to play in Mexico City as the home team this upcoming year. The Raiders are scheduled to play in San Francisco this season. So the NFL has not announced which team will be heading to Mexico to play San Francisco, but it's very possible that could be the Raiders. If the league was going for, hey, what's the biggest fan base that we can probably draw on in Mexico, it's probably going to be the Raiders. Now, the NFL might look at it and say, we don't need to send the Raiders there. It's going to sell out anyways. Let's send a different team to play San Francisco so they get a little bit more popular or notoriety or whatever. So they might look at it the exact opposite of that and say, we don't need to send a super popular team in Mexico. We'll see what they do. But it is possible that the Raiders play in Mexico City this season. The Niners, by the way, they play in Melbourne, Australia, and now in Mexico City. 2 international trips for the Niners. That's brutal. And one of them is like the furthest it can possibly be, right? Like that's probably the furthest game that the NFL will ever play, right? We're not going to, what would be further? Antarctica? Like, so it's pretty brutal as far as schedule-wise goes, especially for a West Coast team. Generally speaking, the West Coast teams have worse travel than the East Coast teams year in and year out. But Bischoff's Briefs is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Host your next birthday party at Battle Blast. If you book the party package, you'll get a private party room, a dedicated host, pizza, soda, arcade tokens, and laser tag. Plus, you can add on a game for adults or just book it for your own birthday. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue, your next stop for fun in Las Vegas. Programming note for you, no show on Friday. I have to get my laptop keyboard fixed. If you haven't been paying attention, I don't have a space bar on my laptop, so that's got to get fixed, and that's hopefully going to happen on Thursday and Friday. So I won't have my laptop, and therefore will not be doing a show. So if you're looking for one on Friday, I'm sorry. Blame my space bar. Also, next week, scheduled to be determined, but I'm helping my sister move. She's moving from Iowa to Hawaii, and she's got to go to LA, and she's coming through Vegas, and I have to help her because they're moving dogs. It's complicated. So I'm going to miss a show at some point next week as well, while I'm helping my sister move from Iowa to Hawaii via Las Vegas and Los Angeles. Also a disaster. It's, at least I'm my own boss, so I can take off when I want, but we'll figure that out next week. This will take some getting used to. Northern Illinois football and some Mountain West news. So Northern Illinois' head coach is leaving to coach the Seahawks, specifically to be their running backs coach. So a Mountain West member just lost their head coach to a position job in the NFL. Pete Thamel did report that he's going to be the highest paid running backs coach in the NFL. So I'm assuming that's a raise. But Thomas Hammock is leaving NIU to be a position coach in the NFL. That's sort of a brutal sign, right? That's a brutal way to look at where you stand as a football program and sort of where UNLV stands as its conference opponents. But I will say this, under Thomas Hammock, Northern Illinois was 35-47, 3 bowl appearances in 7 seasons. So this doesn't look like a coaching situation where it's like, oh, it really hurts to lose Thomas Hammock. But the problem here is the timing. It's mid-February and Northern Illinois just lost their head coach. They have to hire a new head coach in mid-February. Who are the options going to be, right? Would assume it's going to be a promote from within scenario. That would seem to be the obvious choice here. But like, that's a disaster. Absolute disaster. The entire roster should be set. I'm pretty certain this rule hasn't changed, but NIU players can now enter the transfer portal because their coach is leaving. So they could lose guys and then not really have a great chance to replace them because high school signing days already happened. Like, this is just like, this is terrible. This is genuinely bad for Northern Illinois coming into their first season in the Mountain West. So how good are they going to be? I'm not expecting them to be that competitive to start, right? I doubt they'll be awful. Well, maybe they will be. But like, I don't think we're looking at this and saying, oh, Northern Illinois is going to contend in the Mountain West right away. I think genuinely it's going to be UNLV, probably New Mexico, and North Dakota State as the best 3. And then Hawaii looks like a decent candidate. There'll probably be somebody else, but those are probably going to be the best teams in the Mountain West, and Northern Illinois will not be in that conversation. Now, on Hawaii. So this is a couple weeks old, and I've been meaning to talk about it, but haven't gotten to it. You know, who controls what gets talked about on this show? But Bill Connolly of ESPN, he did sort of a mock college football playoff field for next year. And he actually went through and kind of did it based on how the selection committee chooses teams. And for the group of 5 spot, I found this interesting. It's looking at how they view non-power teams and when they play power conference opponents. This past season, Tulane was in the playoffs after playing 3 power conference teams. They went 2-1. They beat Northwestern and Duke, but they lost to Ole Miss. James Madison did make the playoff as a non-power conference team, but only made it because the ACC champion was an 8-5 Duke, right? But here's the interesting part. James Madison was ahead of Tulane. They had a better record, and their metrics were better, right? The analytics said James Madison was better than Tulane this year, but Tulane was ahead of James Madison in the rankings. And I think in large part it might be because they played 3 power conference teams and beat 2 of them. The season before that, Boise State made the playoffs, and they played 3 power conference teams. Kind of. They beat they lost Oregon, but they beat Washington State and Oregon State, who were not actually power conference teams, but had been just one season earlier. So kind of played 3 power conference teams. But overall, Bill Connolly's point was through 2 rounds of a 12-team playoff, the committee appears to favor the group of 6 teams that have played power conference opponents. UNLV only plays 1 this year, and it's Cal. UNLV has a good non-conference schedule. Memphis and North Texas are on there. We've talked about this before. They're going to get a chance to go head-to-head with some American teams that they might actually be competing with for that power or that group of 6 spot in the playoff. But if we're just focusing on power conference teams, UNLV only plays Cal. And Cal's probably not going to be that good. So the way Bill Connolly actually did this is he went through and he was like, all right, the committee cares about power conference opponents. How many group of 6 teams actually play multiple power conference opponents this upcoming season? There's only 14 of them. Tulane does it again, so Tulane might be sort of a good choice here. But another team that does it is Hawaii. And Bill Connolly actually picked Hawaii as sort of like, hey, what if I pick a surprise group of 6 team? And he picked Hawaii. They play Stanford at Stanford, and they play Arizona State at Arizona State. Now, SP Plus, that's my favorite measurement, analytics measurement for college football teams. Last year, UNLV finished 57th. Hawaii finished 68th. UNLV did beat Hawaii easily when they faced off head-to-head. But full season-wise, UNLV wasn't that much better than Hawaii. So if UNLV takes any sort of step back and Hawaii beats, honestly, one of Stanford, Arizona State, you could very easily see Hawaii, if they win the Mountain West, have one non-conference loss to a power conference opponent, have a win over a power conference opponent, and potentially be the best choice out of the Mountain West to go to the college football playoff. Now, does the committee actually specifically care about power conference opponents? It's only a 2-season sample size, so we don't have that much to go on. In theory, UNLV playing Memphis, North Texas, and Cal could be more impressive than Stanford and Arizona State. Could be. We'll see how good all those teams are. But if they do truly just look at, power conference and non-power conference, Hawaii might actually have a little bit of an edge, and it might be key for non-power conference teams to schedule sort of mid to lower tier power conference opponents in the future. Now, are they going to want to play those games? That's a whole nother question for the power conference teams, but that'll be an interesting way to look at it. And we might know before conference play starts who actually is a real contender for a playoff spot, right? Because if Hawaii loses both of those games, they're almost certainly not going to be in contention for a playoff spot. They'd have to win pretty much everything else to be in the conversation. If UNLV goes 4-0 in the non-conference, that's probably going to be as good as any other non-power conference team does, right? If you're able to beat Cal, a power conference team, and then beat Memphis and North Texas, two of what could be the other good group of 6 teams, that's probably going to be as good of a resume as any other non-power conference teams. Now, UNLV goes 1-2 in those games, they're probably done. I mean, they like Hawaii, they win all of their other games and finish 11-2 a Mountain West champ, maybe. But we might know very, very early if Hawaii or UNLV has a better shot at going to a college football playoff. And remember, I don't think it'll come into play, but it doesn't have to be the Mountain West champion. It can be the second place team in the Mountain West. It does not have to be a conference champion that represents the group of 6 in the college football playoff. So there is a weird scenario where Hawaii does really good in the non-conference. They win both of those games, but they lose a tiebreaker and they don't go to the Mountain West championship game, while UNLV went 0-3 against North Texas, Memphis, and Cal. But UNLV wins the Mountain West and Hawaii still goes over them because they don't have to be a conference champ. That is a possibility. Again, unlikely to happen, but it is plausible. But this has been Technically Correct. I'm Tyler Bischoff. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.